We all know that feeling, right? That little ping of a rock hitting your windshield.
Yeah, never fun.
And getting it fixed usually seems pretty simple. Call your insurance, they suggest a shop, boom, done.
That's the idea, anyway.
But what if that process isn't quite so straightforward? What if there's something else going on, something affecting, your choices and maybe those independent glass shops down the street?
Yeah, okay, let's get into that.
So today we're going to unpack this.
And what's interesting right off the bat, looking at the documents we've got here, is the variety.
Right.
We've got complaints directly from policyholders, people like you and me. There's a big overview from the Independent Glass Association, the IGA.
Okay.
We've even got stuff from an FTC complaint. And, get this, internal notes from an actual glass shop.
Wow. Okay, so the mission today.
Basically, to dig into how this whole auto glass repair world works, especially the insurance claims side of things, how does it really function?
And it seems like there's a tension here almost immediately.
You see it too.
Yeah. Getting that windshield fixed, maybe it's not always as impartial as you'd hope. Like there might be conflicts of interest influencing where your repair ends up.
Exactly. And if we zoom out a bit, you got to look at the players involved.
Okay.
One name that, well, it pops up again and again in these sources is Safelite Group.
Safelite, yeah. Everyone knows them.
But here's the thing. It's not just one entity. They've got Safelite AutoGlass, the repair shops you see everywhere.
Right.
And then there's Safelite Solutions. That part acts as a TPA, a third-party administrator.
Okay, what does a TPA do again?
They manage the autoglass claims process for insurance companies. Lots of them, actually. Like over 200 insurers use Safelite Solutions.
Wait, hold on. So Safelite, they have the repair shops and they manage the claims for the insurance companies who pay for those repairs.
That's the setup. Dual role.
Okay, that does feel kind of interesting, doesn't it?
It immediately raises flags, yeah.
Like, could that lead to, well, maybe a bit of self-preference? If you're deciding where the work goes and you own the biggest workshop.
That's the core question, isn't it? Can a company managing claims for insurers really be objective when it also owns the country's largest repair network?
The potential for conflict seems pretty baked in.
The documents we have definitely suggest this is a major point of concern. It's not just theoretical.
Okay, let's make it real then. Talk about actual people's experiences. We have this complaint from Glyza Bennett. She's with USAA.
Dated April 10th, 2025.
She says when she called USAA about her cracked windshield, they just automatically sent her to Safelite. Like, that was the default.
She had a shop she wanted to use, right?
Yeah, Glass Express. She had to specifically say, no, I want this company. She had to, push back.
So the path of least resistance just led straight to Safelite.
Seems like it. And for you, the listener, that shows right there, even if you have a preferred shop, the first interaction might steer you somewhere else.
And that lines up perfectly with a big concern from the IGA, the Independent Glass Association.
Which is?
They call it steering. When you're funneled towards one provider without being clearly told you have other choices.
Okay, steering. Got it. And there's more, right? Trezevon Evans with Progressive Insurance.
Yeah, he had issues with the online claim process.
What happened there?
He said he just didn't see any options. Like when he went online to file the claim, Safelite was just selected automatically.
No choice presented.
Not initially, based on his complaint. Now, he said they did fix it eventually, but that initial feeling, that lack of control, that stuck with him.
And you got to wonder how many people just go with that default.
Exactly. Especially online. It's convenient. You click through. You assume that's just how it works.
And if the system doesn't clearly show you alternatives,
you might never know you had them. We saw hints of this in other complaints, too. Parts were blacked out, but the gist was similar. People wanted a specific local shop, but it wasn't easy to choose them through the insurance process.
Which brings us right back to that word, steering.
The IGA defines it pretty clearly in their documents.
How do they put it?
They say it's when insurers, or their TPAs like Safelite Solutions, push consumers towards certain repair networks.
And often, those networks benefit the TPA's own business, right?
That's the key conflict. Safelite Solutions manages the claim. Safelite AutoGlass does the repair. Same parent company, Safelite Group. So steering the claim potentially means more money for another part of their own company.
Okay, so it's not just a feeling people have. The IGA is calling it out specifically.
And they point to examples. Like an investigation up in Minnesota, the Department of Commerce looked into Safelite's practices there.
What did they find? Or what were the allegations?
The claim was that Safelite was warning people about extra costs, balance billing, they call it, if they chose an independent shop.
Okay.
But here's the kicker. They allegedly gave this warning whether or not that specific independent shop actually did balance bill.
Whoa. So just planting that seed of doubt, fear of unexpected costs to kind of nudge you towards their network.
That's what it sounds like. And yeah, that could definitely make you think twice, even if the fear wasn't based on fact for that particular shop.
Sneaky.
It raises serious questions. And the IGA also mentions a court case, Lloyd's, of Shelton AutoGlass versus Progressive.
Okay, what happened there?
Safelite was acting as the TPA for Progressive in that situation, and the court found they'd given misleading info to customers about pricing at independent shops.
Misleading how?
Making it sound like the independents were more expensive or riskier than they actually were. Again, potentially discouraging you from picking them.
Okay, so we're seeing a pattern here. Policyholders feeling pushed, the IGA flagging steering, warnings about costs that might not even be real, misleading price info.
It paints a picture.
Now let's flip it. How does all this affect the independent shops, those local businesses?
Yeah, the IGA is really worried about them. Their overview talks about the harm Safelite's practices can cause these smaller guys.
What kind of harm?
A big one is payment and pricing. Independents dealing with claims managed by Safelite Solutions often say they get paid really low rates. Artificially low, the IGA calls it.
So low it might not even cover their costs.
Potentially. It puts them in a bind. Either they eat the loss, or they have to fight Safelite Solutions to get paid fairly, which takes time and resources they might not have.
That sounds tough. Like David and Goliath trying to argue over an invoice.
It can be. And remember that Minnesota review. The IGA says it found Safelite systematically tried to push pricing down.
Systematically. Like, it wasn't just random low offers. It was a strategy.
That's the implication.
Yeah.
A deliberate effort to control what they pay out, which puts the squeeze on competitors.
And if you squeeze them hard enough.
They might go out of business, which means fewer choices for you, the consumer, in the end.
We've actually got some specific stories from one shop, Glass Express.
Right. These internal examples really highlight the friction.
Okay, first one. Matt Trump's Toyota Tundra, Progressive Insurance.
What happened?
So the job was assigned to Glass Express. They did the work, installed the windshield.
Okay.
Then somehow the referral seemed to switch back to Safelite after the install was done.
Wait, after Glass Express already did the work?
Yeah. Glass Express had to keep calling Safelite Solutions, chasing them down just to get the referral sent back so they could actually bill for the job they completed.
What a mess. Did the customer confirm who did the work?
Yep. Mr. Trump's confirmed Glass Express did it. But the admin hassle for Glass Express sounds intense.
Definitely. And shows potential problems in Safelite's system, or maybe something more deliberate.
And it gets weirder. When Safelite Solutions finally sent an invoice related to this,
Yeah.
they initially invoiced for a failed rock chip repair.
But Glass Express did a full replacement.
Exactly. So wrong service entirely. Just seems like layers of problems for the independent shop trying to get paid correctly.
That points to, well, potential issues with accuracy, fairness, maybe even competence in the system. Then there's another one, right? Maria Moreno.
This one's really strange.
How so?
Safelite Solutions created what they literally called a fake schedule
Yeah.
for Glass Express in their system.
A fake schedule.
Yep. And there was a note attached. Fake-ish to hold time.
Hold time for what?
Doesn't say, but it gets worse. The note also said, failed rep company, Geico, and had a different referral number listed.
Whoa. Failed rep company. What does that even mean, it sounds like? Like they were trying to block Glass Express from doing the job.
That's what it looks like, doesn't it? Maybe trying to hold the spot so Safelite AutoGlass could swoop in.
It strongly suggests some kind of interference, trying to intercept a job after it was assigned to the shop the customer presumably chose.
Which directly impacts your ability as the customer to use the shop you want.
Yeah, big concerns about fair play there, and the integrity of the whole referral process.
It makes that IGA initiative, Don't Get Steered, seem even more critical.
Totally. They're collecting evidence, trying to show patterns of late payments, short payments.
And they think it's systemic, tied to Safelite's computer system.
Yeah, they mentioned the SV2 system specifically. The idea is it's not just mistakes. It might be programmed or used in a way to disadvantage the independent shops financially.
Okay, shift gears slightly. State Farm. Huge insurer.
Huge.
The IGA seems really concerned that State Farm switched to using Safelite Solutions for their claims. Why is that such a big deal?
Because it massively concentrates power. State Farm is so big, their moving claims administration to Safelite Solutions drastically increases the volume Safelite handles.
More claims managed by the company that also owns the repair shops.
Exactly. So those worries about steering, about reduced competition, about fewer choices for you, the IGA feels the State Farm deal just pours gasoline on that fire.
Makes it even harder for customers to know they can choose an independent shop.
That's the fear. If almost all roads lead through Safelite Solutions, the potential for them to direct traffic towards Safelite AutoGlass just grows and grows.
And less competition in claims handling means Safelite has more leverage.
More leverage, potentially pushing independents further to the margins, maybe impacting the health of the whole industry, fewer options for everybody down the line.
Which brings up antitrust concerns, big ones.
Yeah, the IGA raises this explicitly. They even compare Safelite's setup to pharmacy benefit managers, PBMs.
PBMs.
Yeah.
Okay, how is that relevant here? Explain that for us.
It's a pretty sharp comparison. Think about it. PBMs manage drug benefits for health plans, right?
Right.
But often, those PBMs are linked to or own their own mail order or specialty pharmacies.
Ah, I see. So the PBM manages the benefit, but also owns a pharmacy that competes with your local drugstore.
Exactly. Same potential conflict as Safelite. Safelite Solutions manages the glass claim for your insurer, while Safelite AutoGlass competes with your local independent glass shop.
So in both cases, the claims manager have a financial reason to steer business to their own pharmacy or repair shop.
Precisely. Built-in conflict. Potential for favoring their own network with better rates or easier access, which, for you, could mean less choice, maybe higher costs eventually, whether it's windshields or prescriptions.
So the IGA is basically saying Safelite might be acting like a monopoly, using steering, price pressure, limiting choices.
That's the core of their antitrust argument, yeah. Using their dominant position in claims TPA work to unfairly boost their repair business, hurting competition, and you, the consumer. All the stuff we've talked about, the steering, the low reimbursements, the market consolidation, they see it as evidence.
They're also fighting against something called the NCIL Motor Vehicle Glass Model Act. What's that about?
NCIL is the National Council of Insurance Legislators. They proposed this model act like a template law states could adopt.
And the IGA doesn't like it.
Not at all. They think it gives insurers way too much power over pricing and steering. They argue it makes it easier for insurers to push you towards their preferred networks, weakening your right to choose. They worry about clauses that could standardize pricing in ways that hurt independence, and they feel it doesn't do enough to ensure safety and quality standards are met by those preferred networks. Basically, they see it as favoring insurers and big players like Safelite, not protecting you or the small shops.
So they want rules that focus on consumer rights and fair competition, not rules that give insurers more control.
That's their stance, yeah. They feel the NCOIL model goes the wrong way.
We should probably also mention those whistleblower settlements, California, Illinois, nearly $27 million combined.
Yeah, that's significant. Related to allegations of improper billing?
Safelite denied wrongdoing, right? Paid the settlements, but didn't admit fault.
Correct. But still, the fact that these cases were brought, investigated, and resulted in such large payouts, it definitely adds another layer, raises questions about their business practices, even if liability wasn't formally admitted. Something else for you, the listener, to be aware of.
Okay, let's talk tech for a minute. Digital steering. What does that mean in practice when I'm trying to file a claim on my phone or computer?
It's about how the websites and apps are designed. They can nudge you subtly, or maybe not so subtly, towards Safelite.
Oh.
Well, maybe they don't make it super obvious you can choose another shop. Or they splash Safelite all over the place, trusted partner, convenient, one-stop shop, especially highlighting that they do recalibration.
Ah, the recalibration thing. That's important now with all the car tech.
Crucial. The ADS systems, the sensors in the windshield.
So they push Safelite as the easy all-in-one solution.
Okay.
Glass and recalibration.
Exactly. Making it seem like maybe going to an independent is more hassle because you'd have to sort out the recalibration separately, even if that's not true.
We saw examples from Auto Owners Insurance's app.
Yeah. It did mention the right to choose, to be fair. But screen after screen seemed to promote Safelite, emphasizing that convenience of handling everything. It's easy to see how you just go with that flow.
Just click the easy button they put right in front of you.
Right. Convenience is huge. And we also saw that progressive email, the important service notice.
Yeah, that was weird. Sent after the customer was already assigned to Glass Express.
Uh-huh. And it really hammered home the need for recalibration and mentioned Safelite's ability to do it. Even if it wasn't meant as steering at that point, you can see how it might confuse the customer or feel like pressure.
Like, are you sure you want to stick with that other shop? Recalibration is tricky.
Something like that.
Yeah.
It muddies the waters after a choice has supposedly been made.
So the digital experience itself can be a form of steering. Okay.
Yeah.
What about some other, maybe more direct examples of interference that Glass Express ran into? There's that USAA Boundary Street collision situation with a Ram truck.
Right. This was a 2016 Ram. Needed a windshield. Glass Express quoted the OEM glass, the one with the Ram logo. They even offered to match the collision center's cost.
Correct. Sounds reasonable.
But when the quote went to USAA, the insurer apparently said, nope, we got a lower quote from Safelite for an aftermarket windshield without the logo. That's all we'll pay for.
Even though Glass Express could do the OEM or match the aftermarket price.
It seems Glass Express was willing to match the aftermarket price too, but Safelite had also given a low quote directly to the collision center. It looks like USAA used the Safelite quote to justify paying only for the cheaper non-OEM glass.
So the insurer is pushing for the cheaper part, maybe using Safelite's quote as leverage, and potentially overriding your preference if you wanted the original Ram logo glass.
That's what it looks like. It raises questions about whether cost savings for the insurer are trumping your choice for specific parts and how preferred providers might be used in that negotiation.
And one more friction point. Safelite's inspection service refusing photos from Glass Express.
Yeah, AGIS or Neural Claim Solutions acting for Safelite. This was another USAA customer. Glass Express sent photos of the damage to get the repair approved.
Standard procedure, right?
You'd think. But AGIS apparently refused the photos and insisted on contacting the customer directly first.
Why? What was Glass Express's take on that?
They saw it as just delaying things, frustrating the customer, slowing down the approval for a repair the customer had already chosen them to do.
Another hurdle, another delay, potentially making the independent shop look less efficient, maybe.
Could be perceived that way by the customer, yeah. Just adds friction to the process when you choose an independent.
Okay, and finally, let's just underline the importance of recalibration again. It keeps coming up.
It's huge now. All those advanced driver assistance systems, lane keeping, emergency braking, adaptive cruise control, they rely on cameras and sensors often mounted on the windshield.
So if you replace the windshield,
You have to make sure those systems are recalibrated correctly. Otherwise, they might not work right, which is a safety issue.
and Safelite promotes that they do this, often in the same appointment.
Right. It's a key service.
Yeah.
And they market it as part of their convenient package, which, again, can subtly steer you towards them if you're worried about getting it done right.
Even if independent shops are perfectly capable of doing it too, or have partners who do.
Exactly. It's about that perceived convenience and expertise. It's
Yeah.
a factor.
Okay, so wrapping this up for everyone listening, it's clear this auto glass repair world is way more complex than just making a phone call.
Definitely. You've got this complicated dance between insurers, the TPAs like Safelite Solutions, and the independent shops.
And that dual role Safelite plays, managing claims and doing repairs, it raises really valid questions about steering, about pricing pressure, and about whether your choices as a consumer are truly free and wide open.
Absolutely right. But, understanding these dynamics is power for you, the consumer.
How so?
Just knowing you have the right to choose your shop. Being aware that steering tactics exist, whether it's through a phone call or an app, it helps you make a decision that's really yours.
It really does make you think, doesn't it? About that balance, convenience from the big guys versus, well, a healthy market with lots of independent options.
Yeah. Where does that balance lie? And what happens long term if things keep consolidating, if choice keeps shrinking?
That's a great question to chew on. Maybe next time you get that chip, take a second. Look up the local independent shops, see what they offer.
And maybe even check out your state's rules on AutoGlass claims. Knowing your rights locally is always good. The more you know.
The better choices you can make. Definitely food for thought.